when I think about miscalculations, you know, over the last several months, I think one of the biggest miscalculations that any of us have seen is Mark Zuckerberg. And I believe that he just assumed that that if TikTok got banned, that everybody would just automatically flock back to Facebook and Instagram. Because I think in his mind, we wouldn't have any other choice. And I think it's his arrogance and his hubris that, in the couple weeks before the TikTok ban is set to take place, he makes a very public spectacle of announcing that Meta platforms are no longer going to use independent fact checkers. Fact checking is no longer going to be a thing on Facebook and Instagram. And that same level of arrogance and hubris in essentially proactively putting out a policy that free speech is going to be a thing on Meta platforms, and now you are not going to be penalized for saying things like trans people are mentally ill, or insulting the LGBTQ community, or insulting women. They carved out those categories and said, free speech, everybody, have at it. And then 3 days after that, they very publicly announced that all Meta platforms, businesses, companies are doing away with all DEI initiatives, programs, hiring programs. They're doing away with any efforts or goals relative to representation. That's not going to impact how they select their vendors anymore going forward. It's not going to impact or govern any of their internal hiring or promotion practices. I mean, we're a week from today is when the TikTok ban is supposed to take effect. We will get an opinion from the Supreme Court sometime this week, ruling however they rule on that underlying legislation. And in the 10 to 14 days leading up to that, Mark Zuckerberg decided to just say a gigantic fuck you to everybody in the United States who cares about fact checking, who cares about being able to use social media without being attacked or insulted because of their gender or their sexual orientation, and has just nuked all of their DEI initiatives. Completely the opposite of the path that Costco has taken, saying fuck you to everybody on the right. We're keeping our DEI programs. The arrogance and hubris of Mark Zuckerberg in firmly believing that the rest of us would bow to him and return to his platforms because we don't have any other choice has been stunning. It's been stunning. I mean, I've got friends who work in relatively high places at Facebook who've been there for years, and very quietly they're like, I can't work here anymore. And they are actively working on their exits. And it's interesting, within Facebook itself, internally, they had all these internal communication capabilities so that employees could communicate with each other. The day before Mark Zuckerberg announced there's not going to be any more fact checking, Facebook turned that off. And those internal communication capabilities for employees no longer exist. Nothing is more fragile and crippled by the slightest amount of criticism than your average everyday billionaire. So, hashtag fuck Zuck.